Good morning, Army people. It is your buddy Choppadong. I'm going to do a little bit of a Chop Talk MLB DFS video for you this morning for the early slate, the early MLB 4-game slate, because it's just going to be the most efficient way at this point to get information out to you as quickly as possible. We're going to break this thing down as quickly as we can and pass things forward. I'm going to release it free to the public just to show you guys what I'm doing when I get pinched for time so that you guys can come inside. These will be VIP videos. Probably starting fairly soon when I do them, and that's because the membership inside DFS Army and the communication back and forth in the Slack chat rooms that we have allow us to go back and forth and answer questions and dive into these slates a little bit deeper, and that's obviously VIP type material. So this is just a little bit of a show of the statistics, the research station, and how we're going to break down a slate going forward as we start to hone in on our 2019 process. A couple of things have added into the research station here, notably DFSA grade, good and bad for pitchers, and Chop Shop over here, which was sort of a gift to me. I mean, I feel a little funny with it kind of bearing my name. I don't think that I'm that important of a deal, but anyway. You see on the slate today, the 4 games, I had it closed out. You click the 105, you wait for these pitchers to pop in a little bit, and then you hold down the control key and you kick the other 2 o'clock times on, and you'll narrow this down to just the 4 games that you're looking at for the early slate. We can sort by salary, we can sort by all sorts of things we want to, but I sorted by descending. Sorry to keep scrolling back and forth. I'm getting my own bearings here. I scrolled by descending order of the K-score here because it's my favorite metric. Simply is a strikeout upside metric for the pitchers compared to the batters they're facing, and the team's strikeout numbers against that handedness of pitchers. So James Paxton shoots right to the top. Steven Strasburg, Trevor Bauer, Jake Junis is interesting. This would automatically be a DraftKings consideration for me, where you need 2 pitchers. He'll probably be pretty chalky there. I also want to see if the Vegas information is populated yet. And no, I don't know why that's been lagging the past couple of days, but I'm sure the research station guys will get it right here in the next couple of days. You got all sorts of stuff you can go blind on, park factor and whatever else, but I focus on a combination of K-score, Vegas odds, and price and DFSA grade here. And so I can see Trevor Bauer and Jake Junis are a little bit of a slip in the overall DFSA grade, even though their K-score, and I like a number over 500, by the way, their K-score is fairly high. So that's going to impart a little bit more risk into the situation most times. Paxton and Strasburg are overwhelmingly the 1 and 2 options. If you're looking for more of a safety plus upside aspect, you're probably going to pay for that. I mean, there's a $600 difference between Strasburg and Paxton. New York beat Washington in Game 1 behind DeGrom. Baltimore's a little bit less threatening of an offense. I also heard that Chris Davis is sitting, and the joke was made that there's 3 less strikeouts for James Paxton. So I guess that caps his ceiling by that joke. I would just be looking at a couple of these situations. I might even look into the Kansas City weather situation. It's supposed to be very, very cold there. If I kick over and give Roto Grinders a quick plug here, just in the way they present their lineups page, you can quickly see Syndergaard is not the favorite. It's Strasburg today, so Strasburg has the Vegas odds, but it's not significant. It is significant for James Paxton. So probably I'm going to start with Paxton. And I'm going to look down this slate a little bit and see if I spot any other Vegas odds type situation. Nothing overwhelming. So when I come back to the research station and I'm looking at Paxton having the highest K-score and an overwhelmingly favorite situation when it comes to Vegas odds to win the game, then this is a pretty darn secure pick. It's got a lot of strikeout upside. You probably will tend to go a little deeper in the game. We're not intimidated by the Baltimore offense. So at 10-4 or 10-8, that's where I'm starting. Now, what can I find that is going to be better or close for the money? Because if I'm going to save money, I need to save. If I save significant money, I can deal with less than stellar numbers compared to Paxton. But if I'm looking for something like, somebody who's only maybe $500 less, then the numbers had better be better. And Strasburg's odds are not better to win the game. And his K-score is obviously lower than Paxton, being that he's, I've sorted by K-score and he's listed underneath him. And it's significant. It's almost 30 points. Now, I might look at Trevor Bauer and Steven Strasburg in comparison because their K scores are pretty close. But Trevor Bauer's a significant DFSA grade drop. And he wasn't a significant favorite either, if he even was one. He might have been the underdog. Probably not the Minnesota, but he's even more expensive. So he would be like, I'm sorry, not even considered. Now, when you look at him being priced down on DraftKings, that one's probably factoring some of the weather in there. FanDuel's always behind on their pricing, but looking at some of the price down in a GPP, you might use him over on DraftKings. But I think that I'm pretty much just rolling Paxton out everywhere. Maybe a little bit of Strasburg, and I'm just not going to mess with it. Over here in a GPP, maybe a Bauer-Junis type of mix. See, Syndergaard, because of Washington, is way down in the K score. So people are going to be going to him. But I feel like the 446, I would rather have the 533 by a mile. So I don't need any Syndergaard in this situation. He would be another GPP type of pick. Does it mean Junis is better? Probably not. But the 8,100 for the price means I would like to spend some time, rostering him over on DraftKings, maybe where I might need a little cost savings. Now, if you can get Paxton Strasburg or Paxton, Bauer, Paxton, Syndergaard, something like that, or a mix like a Strasburg, Syndergaard, you'll be a little bit lower owned perhaps because Paxton's probably going to be the chalk on the early slate. Let's look at the next factor, which is finding pitchers to attack. And on bigger slates, it's more important, but we can sort this DFSA grade by the worst and go by ascending. And we can see Nate Karns, Jake Odorizzi, Trevor Williams are the attackable pitchers right off the bat. I can look for the bad category here, and I can see that Jake Odorizzi has a ton of bad going for him. He's got some more good going for him than Nate Karns, but he's got a lot of bad going for him. These are the first two pitchers I want to attack. Okay, and I might get down to a Trevor Williams to mix in some other bats. The other three offenses, I don't know, maybe not so much. So New York, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Well, all right. Good luck getting New York bats in there with Paxton, Strasburg, Syndergaard types. Good luck. But if you can, definitely look into it. And we'll look into that in bats in a minute. But these are going to be the three offenses I'm going to try and target. Colder weather in Kansas City, Minnesota, whatever. Don't know how much I'm going to be on those games. Even the Cleveland might take a little bit of a hit for me, although Odorizzi is definitely attackable. So, but this is just generally what I'm going to do. And you can hear the thoughts creep into my head about maybe a little bit of weather, but you hear me, I'll shake off weather when this offense is ranked this high. Because again, I've got limited other options on this slate to look at. If this was a large 14-game slate, I could easily just disregard Cleveland and say, weather, see ya, not worth the risk. But on a small 4-game slate, we've only got 8 offenses, and we really only like 3 of them. We're going to have to probably consider that in to some degree. Now, am I going to make them my main 4-piece stack? No, probably not. I don't know that I'm going to be able to afford Yankees. So I'm probably going to have to be focused on a Cincinnati, going down the list a little bit, maybe a Pittsburgh type, something along those lines. Now, let's not forget that Cincinnati's not on the FanDuel slate. So that's going to factor into how much you like that offense. Another thing that I do go to, though, and I scrolled over amid some ruckus in the background where I had to pause the video, Sierra is something that I also watch in with looking at bad pitchers to attack. And I'm going to watch something like the 4.71, but I'm going to get excited about the 5.02. So if we scroll back over and see that Ronaldo Lopez, Kansas City might be something to factor in. They may be our third offense, DraftKings, maybe Cincinnati, since they're maybe on the early slate over there. But you can see how quickly these offenses drop off because, honestly, in DFSA grade, the rating starts coming up into the mediocre to decent. You got to take what the slate gives you. But you're really going to try and get into these top couple of pitchers if you can. Those are the worst pitchers on the slate with good offenses going up against them. So you're going to try and get in there as much as you can and get creative with maybe bottom of the order value or something to differentiate yourself a little bit on the shorter slate. Let's go over to the batters just a smidge since we've got a couple of targets. And what I would do on the batters is I would come through and I would sort by this W score here. W score is just a matchup metric, again, taking WOBA and ISO into account for both the pitchers and the the batters that they're facing in their matchups, and that's going to give us a score of the strength of that matchup. And you should see a bunch of Yankees at the top. Now that we've got it sorted, down in here to the 520 range or so is about good. If I wanted to filter it out, I could certainly filter it out greater than 500. And then I can cut down a lot of the fluff. And I can be dealing only with a player pool that contains some of the best matchups on the day. And I'm going to see, well, Kansas City with Ryan O'Hearn on a short sample size, but we did like Kansas City, so there's a good matchup there. Aaron Judge, duh. Jose Ramirez, duh. Palka's interesting because Jake Junis does have some weak spots. Pittsburgh's Young-Ho Kang. And then New York. So you can see with New York, 2 Cleveland's, a 4th New York, a Kansas City. Again, these are the guys that are coming to the top. So I guess in theory, you don't even have to look at the reverse DFSA grade type of thing to stack against pitchers, but it will help you spot some things that maybe don't show up and aren't completely congruent when you flip through the tabs. But this is just a quick way to start narrowing some of these guys down. I'm going to start writing these guys down on pieces of paper. I'm going to start ranking them. I'm going to start looking at them. I don't look too much into their other numbers just yet because I don't really need to with the lack of data that we're compiling inside, this first 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of the MLB season. But I will start looking a little bit at some of these matchup numbers, the total WOBA, things like that. But that's what W score is taking into account. I would look at some of the value projections here, like a Palka or a Kong, because these are guys that are going to probably be pushed into our lineups. Now, again, you're going to have to pay attention to the Cincinnati game as to whether or not those guys are in your lineup or not. But come all the way down here, Brad Miller, 4.05 might be worth it. On the, Cleveland here, might be nice little value, a little bit of salary relief. He's got a strong matchup. It might work out for you. When we scroll over, and this is just, again, a quick way to assess the slate. When you start assembling lineups, you start tweaking these guys into your optimizer. Use the DFS Army optimizer or whatever site you tend to use and start bumping these guys' projections up a little bit so that the optimizers start pulling these guys forward for you. It's all stuff that we talk about inside our coaching channels. If I look over a little bit more, I'll tell you what, let's go to the Trends tab. I don't think we're going to see anything just yet when it comes right down to it. But if I can get this guy loaded with some of these trending WOBAs, I don't know if these 7 days are in there or if this is still 17, 18 type numbers, if this is carried over for the couple of days of the first of the year, or if this is from, going back into 5 games or so of last year, which I wouldn't want to use. But I'm going to start watching these here over the next few days, and these are going to start to populate in and start to become numbers that we're going to pay attention to. Like a JD Martinez hitting, 568 WOBA over 7 days is pretty strong. 654 Luke Voigt. I know he ended the year hot last year, but he's also started the year hot this year. So if this doesn't tell me whether or not this number is actually what I want to see or not. It's 2 days worth of WOBA. I don't know. It could be last year too. But I'm going to go down here to like a Josh Donaldson, down here to a Mookie Betts, and these are guys that sometimes you can take these numbers, and if I sort this by descending, sometimes, I'm, looking at plate appearances, like you get your platooners, Souza's hurt, Barnes is a platoon guy, but Curtis Granderson at a 785, 27 at-bats, if this was over a week, I'm just showing you how to use this going forward, you might want to use him at $2,800 on Fanduel. Right? Salary relief. You can see some of these guys that are running high in the WOBA category that salaries are way up here at the top. These are some of the cheaper guys that you might want to include when you're picking through for value because you're getting expensive pitchers and you want a Yankees stack or a Cleveland stack or something like that today. These are the kinds of things we'll go through. These are the things we'll talk about more inside the Army. I'm not going to give specific plays today. I did target a couple of pitchers, but until these numbers normalize over the next week or so, we're not really going to dig into hitters, but we will get there. At any rate, if you're wanting more information on this kind of stuff, you need to become an Army member inside dfsarmy.com. So click the link in the comments section. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, for a 20% discount. And get in here and get rolling today. Let's get moving. Let's get to teaching you how to become a better MLB player, and let's show you how to really flip these tools on their heads and build you lineups really, really quickly that are competitive around the industry. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.